the we're meeting according to the governor's extended emergency order allowing virtual meetings. So, and we are recording this meeting. Call to order, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
Trustee Dickin,
Here.
Trustee Eastman,
Here.
Trustee Haber,
Here.
Trustee Hollander,
Here.
Trustee Jamerson,
Here.
President Ford.
Present.
Thank you.
First order of business is the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Dickin,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Haber,
Aye.
Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Next order of business is the approval of bills, and you should have gotten the council report.
Chris,
yes.
did we approve the minutes from the finance workshop as well?
Oh, they were, yeah, I took them as one. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. We should, it was one meeting, I think, with a recess.
Okay, then I do have, well, Lauterbach and Ahmed's name is misspelled, but we can correct that later.
Okay, I think that's acceptable to everyone. Next order of business is the bills. Everyone should have received the council report separate from the final packet. Are there any questions on the council report?
A question.
Trustee Jamerson.
I have a couple questions. Actually, it's 464 for OK Electric. It says engineer expense. Pat, can you, I think that might be something else. Was that what they did at the water reservoir?
That's correct. That shouldn't be engineer's expense. That would be the reservoir modernization for this year.
Okay, that needs recategorization, and that's probably my fault when I was asked the question. There
Yeah,
are
it
like
needs
a
to
billion categories.
That needs to go to the water fund.
Okay,
And then I did have a second question, if you can bear with me, because my computer is being a little slow here. Where are you? Well, I know there was another question. Let somebody else ask their question. I'll come back to me, please.
okay, Trustee Dickin.
Yeah, page 4, item 793. There is 3 invoices, all dated with the same date for Procarmo. Each invoice is $600. It was my understanding that we're paying them $600 monthly. So I'm not sure if we're trying to catch up or pay forward.
Okay, we're definitely not paying forward. Let me check into that, but that could very well be a catch up.
Okay.
And I will check into that and make sure in the same, and I'll check into that.
Yeah, they're different invoice numbers, same amount, but billed on the same date.
Okay,
Thank you.
I did find my other one.
okay,
It actually starts on page 1 with Stranger at the very bottom, but all of the invoices are on page 2. And the very last one says capital outlay for $33,500. Pat, can you tell us what that's for?
Yeah, so supply chain issues, of course, are everywhere. So we ordered ahead. I don't recall exactly how many grinder pumps to have in stock. And so Roger must have figured that was capital rather than maintenance, because they're replacement grinder pumps.
Well, that should really go to the sewer fund then, correct, Pat? Not capital outlay? I mean, I know it's capital expense, but it really is part of the sewer fund.
Right. I think, aren't all the 502s the sewer fund?
No idea, but I would guess that's the case.
I can confirm that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that if it's maintenance or if it's capital, we just need to verify that. That's all I had.
Okay, are there any other questions? Is there a motion to approve? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hellinger,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay,
I did confirm that all the 502s are sewer funds, so that's a capital subcategory under the sewer fund.
okay, so that's okay. Thank you, Pat. Okay, next item of business is the Treasurer and Finance Committee report. Our treasurer is with us tonight.
Yes. Should I go first?
Sure.
Okay, I got a new report at the very end of the day from Danielle at JP Morgan. So I'll just kind of give you a brief synopsis here. Well, I think for the first time in, gosh, I don't know, a year and a half, we're starting to see an uptick in the rates. So it looks as though, first of all, our portfolio has a total maturity of just over a year and a month. So we're starting to see things come due, and we've got a decent amount of cash too. We've got close to 5 million of our 10 million in cash, and she, I got to say, she's done a great job, even though she didn't predict the uptick. It's kind of happening, and we're able to take advantage of it. So her words to me, it's a good time to start rolling back into the market. Just to give you a flavor of it, our current portfolio is just under 1%, the average rate held till maturity. The renewal rates are still about half of that. So if we were to invest all of it today, we're talking about 0.4%. And it's a far cry from what we were used 2 years ago. But last time I think we looked at it, just to give you a benchmark, the trustee Jamerson asked about IPTIP, and that was at 0.2. And right now that's at 0.23. So it's not really up there competitively speaking yet. But the current rate for US Treasuries is around 0.4%. US Treasuries certificates are around 0.3. The JP Morgan forecast is pretty much along those lines. They're looking at, if we could go out longer, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, we could probably do even better, but we can't and we don't. So that's folly. But they're looking even into a year from now, in September of 22, they're still talking about a 0.5%. So I don't think we're going to spend a year waiting to roll back into it, but we've got maturities coming up and we've got 5 in cash. So she feels now is a good time to start buying with the 5 million to start investing this and build a new ladder in that regard, because we'll have most of our portfolio coming, the rest of it, in the next year and a half. So it bodes well for our rate of return. We're talking about, different returns in terms of investment, but it's all still in safe monies, and nothing has been downrated in our portfolio as of right now. So that's kind of where we're at.
Good report. Does anybody have any questions for our treasurer? Thank you. Thank you, Hal.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Mike, do you have some things for the group?
Just 3 things.
Okay.
One is we're working on processes and procedures somewhat in response to the audit on internal controls, and also how to make things more efficient based on the way other villages are doing things. We've started focusing first on cash disbursements and utility billing. We've got one more walkthrough to do on that, and then we're going to review it with the staff and hopefully tighten up our procedures and controls. With regard to budgeting for next year, we've sent out a budget timeline and a worksheet that's also in the packet. I would appreciate any help from the trustees to make sure that if you have input into the budget, that you do so that we can complete everything by October 27th, get everything into the system after that, and then start analyzing the budget. If there's any questions about any of the assigned responsibilities for the staff or for the trustees, please let me know. And then lastly, the financial results were sent out separately from the preliminary packet, are also included in the final packet. We had a good month. The general fund was positive for the month of $82,000. Most importantly, our cash was up almost $623,000, primarily due to receipt of property taxes in the general fund, and then the ARPA grant that was booked in the capital fund. So if there's any questions, let me know.
I have a quick question.
Trustee Jamerson, yeah.
So I got my places I need to work on, but I have questions about the actual numbers that are for this year and last year, because some of them don't make sense to me. So who do I need to sit down and talk to in regards to the building department, the water fund, and the sewer fund? Who should I sit down and ask questions?
We should start with Nicole, and what I'll do is I'll get her in touch with you so that we can go over the line items individually.
Perfect, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there any comments, suggestions? Okay, seeing none, let's go to our Director of Community Services, please. Russ?
Yes, we've had a busy last couple of weeks. Bruce has kept us busy, working on the planning commission stuff. We had to get the signs. Vivian got all the mailings out to all the correct people around the two items that we're working on. Today we had a meeting with the mayor, Trustee Jamerson, myself, Katie. We're working on getting cameras for the village hall, getting some bids and quotes. Trustee Jamerson is going to get us a contact so we can get some security company in here that's going to know exactly what we need so we can put together an RFP. And I think for now it's about, we got 3 new homes for the first time since I've been here. We actually got 3 brand new houses. Got plans for those. Came in, so we'll be moving forward in that area. So hopefully that means everything's going to break open a little bit. We'll see some more building going on. So that's about it for now.
Trustee Hollander?
Were the 3 new homes on existing lots, or did they take up a vacant lot?
Let's see. One was a vacant lot. The second one is actually the one up on Calvin Court took down a house, so they're replacing it. The one on Saunders Road is a vacant lot, and the other one is a vacant lot. So 2 vacant lots, and I have a 4th one actually coming right across the street from the village hall on Meredith there. The house that burned out of the corner there a couple years back. People are buying that, and they're going to be applying for a plan or a permit for a new house there.
Are there any other questions for our director?
Real quick, the one
Trustee
on Meredith,
Jamerson?
the one on Meredith that they're doing a lot of clearing of the land. Have they gone through the process to get Steve Zimmerman connected
Yes.
with that?
Yes, he's been out there. They've done stuff. We've been over there, so yeah, we're working.
Okay,
Okay.
very good, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Russ.
Yes.
Next, the consultant's report, the attorney's report, please.
As Russ was mentioning, we have 2 hearings coming up before the Plan Commission. on November 4th. One will be for reuse of what had been the Holistic Health Center. It's proposed to be a type of cafe and small market, food market. The other hearing is the beginning of the process for considering the proposal for Thornton's gasoline station. The applicants put in their full submittal. Our engineering review is underway. As I said to someone, probably this will be, at least a 2 appearance event where they lay out a lot of the details of the Plan Commission on the 4th, take some things under advisement. The Plan Commission will have some questions and need for some revisions. It's my guess with something this complex. And then they may be back in December. If that happens, we may have some overlap because December is possibly the target date that Lexington Homes would like to come in for an application for their zoning request to the Plan Commission. But I don't know that for sure yet. That was discussed a couple of weeks back. So we have been busy trying to get some of those things ready for the Plan Commission. And I think everything else is on the agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our village attorney at this point? Okay, seeing none. Village engineers report. Pat?
We are just getting started this week with some of the prep work for this year's road program. A little bit of the underground work might start by Friday, but we expect that to take off in earnest next week. So there'll be more noise associated with that, but we're on track to squeeze it in this year. The meter upgrade program is in full swing. We have, as of yesterday, we've swapped out the equipment on about 200 homes. So that project is proceeding along. And then I guess Mayor Ford, I would ask if we want to jump into the water discussion, or if we would be better off to leave that for visitors wishing to address the board. I do see that Mr. Balanik has joined us, and I imagine that'll come up during that session if we want.
I think we might wait for visitors wishing to address the board.
Okay, that's all I have.
Then we can be more full. Are there any questions for the village engineer at this point? Okay, seeing none. Village ecologist, I don't believe is with us. Plan Commission report, please. Chairman Brightcoff.
Bruce has mentioned the 2 hearings that we have coming up, so I won't repeat that. I will add that the Plan Commission met on October the 7th and discussed amendment of the 2019 comprehensive plan to assign the Federal Life property to a category under the land use map that includes residential uses. The land use for the Federal Life property under the 2019 plan is currently office campus, and the Plan Commission recommends that the Federal Life property be designated business compatible with a mixed use overlay, which could include multifamily homes. This amendment would align the comprehensive plan with the application from Lexington Homes for a zoning change to build townhomes on the Federal Life property.
Is there any discussion at this point? Okay, moving on. The Zoning Board of Appeals did not meet. Our police chief is not with us yet. So we'll kind of hold on to that for a minute, but I'm assuming he will have a couple of things to say. I'll step in and information items and comments from the president. Just to follow up and close the circle on the cleaning contract, we got some good estimates from from SE Enterprises to take over the cleaning contract, substantially the same as the old. And so our old cleaning services were notified and given a 30-day notice. Our new cleaning services will begin on November 1st. The review of the Miller Cooper management letter. This is a continuation of a question that was asked at the last meeting. And I would simply draw your attention to the item in your packet and our response to some of the findings, some of the weaknesses found by the auditors. Just briefly, bank reconciliations, we have now a process in place in 2021 to reconcile reports with the hiring of Lauterberg and Amen. Many of those weaknesses will be gone. Again, this is all in the letter that was in your packet. It's in the last half where we answer their issues. The second one is that we did not have a segregation of duties for payroll. We do now. That includes a review prior by someone other than the person doing the payroll before it goes to our payroll service. The last one was employee reimbursement documentation. We did not have a well-defined expense reimbursement policy. We do now. We have a form developed that is to be used, and we ask for receipts for everything. And toward that end, we've also tried to consolidate. We just today, finally got a village credit card so that we can monitor those expenses. Big delay in that because the audit wasn't done. So I think those answer the questions about the management letter that was with your audit. If you have any further questions on that, please feel free to get in touch with me. Happy to answer it. The last is Russ covered it very briefly, and that was a review of security systems. We have a locking system, we have an alarm system, and we are looking at cameras for Village Hall. The police department has all of that intact and working. We need a little help with Village Hall. So are there any comments or questions on the items that I've brought up, or anything that you'd like to share with me at this point? Okay, moving on, visitors wishing to address the board. And I believe Mr. Blahnik, you have indicated a wish to address the board prior to the meeting. So I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. My internet's a little unstable here in the woods, but I'm hearing every other word. But this is my first time being on a city council meeting, so I apologize if I don't understand the protocol or how to present this. I've been corresponding with Mr. Glenn for a few years now, and he's been very helpful in trying to set forth a path where we can get city water to our small block. I'm on Woodland Lane, but it's, I guess our neighborhood calls it Little Woodland, and there's 20 houses or so on our street that do not have city water. And I'm open to any path forward where we can achieve and get city water to our street. I'm open to having a fire hydrant on my property, which I think the fire marshal and the fire department would greatly appreciate, since there's houses at the end of the block that are probably over 2,000 feet away from the nearest fire hydrant. And again, we just want city water. So my neighbor directly across the street, they back up to Clendenin. So they have the ability to get it through their backyard. They said they would give me the easement to go through their yard and tap in, but that's not ideal engineering wise to do. So I'm at your mercy. I just would love to get city water to our street and to my family.
Matt, would you like to add something to
I would.
what's been said? Okay, thank you.
So do I have permission? I do. So let me bring this up. Can everybody see the map that I just brought up?
Yep.
So this is, as Mr. Blahnik had mentioned, this really started at least a year ago. And as directed by the board, we sent letters out to all the folks on the street, and we really got a mixed bag. This one I'd say is different than the responses we got on Riverwoods Road, where there was a fairly overwhelming no. On Little Woodland, it's a pretty even split between folks that were interested in discussing it further and perhaps getting more information, folks that were absolute, just not interested, and then the folks that we just never got a response from. And beyond, we could continue to pound the pavement and have village staff make phone calls and try to contact people. But the other issue that we wrestle with, and we saw this when we looked into, potentially running water in Vernon Woods as well. It is almost impossible to come up with a service area in most of Riverwoods where the connection fees would largely fund the project. In this case, we've got, if all 17 properties paid in at the current connection fee, we'd still be something like $200,000 short of the project that I've conceptualized in this map. And maybe we get a little bit closer, we could say that the 3 properties that are already connected on Clendenin Lane, we could, count their previously already paid connection fees toward the project. We don't know when they connected exactly. Their connection fees were less, of course, but the ultimately, I think we're looking for some thoughts or direction from the board as to how we can rethink, I suppose, village or water fund participation in these projects, because we're just running into this all over town when residents ask about, can we put together a project to get village water to them? We inevitably run into the shortfall between connection fees and project costs. And when we went through the fee schedule earlier in the year, we determined that continuing to increase the water rate connection fee, to catch up with increasing construction costs was becoming infeasible, because that connection fee just gets to be completely out of reach for most homeowners. So we're left with right now not a lot of good answers for folks that move in and are looking for ways to get water, to get Lake Michigan water. So that's where we're at with this particular proposal, and I of course would welcome any thoughts or ideas that the board may have for how we can move something like this forward.
Pat, can you not share your screen now so that we can all see each other? Well, see each other more easily,
I think so.
please?
I just had to figure out how.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that we've tackled this issue before, water access and so forth. My understanding is that we also are tied in, that we also need to be very aware of our allocations for Lake Michigan water, and those things are going at the same time, and we all of those things, there is a connection between all of that. And I think we really get down to funding. And I would like to know if the board would like us to come up with options for providing services to the residents. That means water service to residents. I know that in the past, we've tried to make that come out even where it's the user pay idea. that's something we have to tackle. But water, I think, is an important issue in the village. And I think it's something that we should really, as a board, have a little, get some options on the table and have a frank discussion about what we are and what we can do, what needs to be done, and what our new residents are looking for. We do have a turnover in residents, so life's changing. Any discussion?
I have, I'm been
Where are you?
probably on the next screen.
What are you doing over there?
I don't know. I'm guessing since I was waving, you didn't say anything, you didn't see me.
No, I did not.
But that's okay. I'm getting used to that. Just kidding. So the last time this came up, I commented on the fact that I think that we need to do a little numbers crunching as well. I think that the more people in the village that are on the water system and are paying for water will increase the amount of money we have in the water, because we do charge more in the fund. We do charge more than we pay for water, partly for maintenance. But I think that I think that besides just looking on the building of the main and what that costs, I think we have to look at the revenue that's going to be generated from that. And I would like to see several options developed. I don't think we need to, do a full-blown engineering study, but I think that it would be nice to get options on getting water to the entire village, even if it means subsidizing it or taking out a bond issue. I don't know what all goes along with that, so I'll plead ignorance on that part. But I think that having water and having a fire hydrant somewhere close to your house. I know when I moved here, the closest fire hydrant was a half mile away from my house. It's now, I actually have two in my yard because my lot is so long. But that's not the case in all of South Riverwoods where I live. And I know there's a lot of people in this neighborhood, we've gone through this before, that want water, but they're so disjointed that it's impossible to even form an SSA, even if you wanted to, because they're not connected. And so I really think we need to, as a board, we need to look at what's best for all of the people in the village. I know we've done, user pay, as you said, Mayor, in the past. But I really believe that we're at a point now where if we want our village to continue to be desirable to live in, we have to be able to give people municipal water. It's my opinion.
And you mentioned the safety issue, and we just heard about a house on Meredith that burnt down some time ago, and a new house is being built. So I do think it's an important issue that we tackle head on.
So as the water trustee, I'd be more than happy to work with Pat and whomever, to come up with some of these things, and Trustee Clayton probably
Do
would.
we see a hand? Yeah, is that a volunteering?
Yes, actually it is. I would like to work on that with you.
Okay. Well, as the finance trustee, I think that that's important, because we will be looking at all of that. Henry, are you question or volunteering?
No, not volunteering. Right hand volunteer, left hand question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's all right. No, my volunteering days are over. I learned that in the military. The two things I'd like to keep in mind is if we do this, we need to do it as a village-wide, not section by section. And if we do it village-wide, there must be some way for those folks who are already on water that we have to make it fair so that everybody really paid the same price at the end of the project. I don't know how to do that, but it might be related to water fees or something else. It may not be possible because once you've bought it, tapped in and you paid your fee, that's it. But I'd like to find some way to make it either village-wide and to make certain that it seemed to have been fair for those folks who did come in early.
Yeah. We have to think as a community at some point. Any other discussion? Because I would like to explore this issue and the impact, the financial impact, as well as affecting our claim on Michigan Water. Trustee Haber?
I'm just wondering if Mr. Balanik knows from his discussions with people along Little Woodland, whether it's a cost issue or whether it's that there are a number of people on his lane that actually like the fact that they're on well water and don't want water. Because I mean, I think we're looking at it as a cost issue and we're saying that's why. And so maybe we need to subsidize it. And I'm all in favor of doing that if it's not, if that's the driving force. But if it's not the driving force, if it's just that people don't want it, that's a different, I think, issue.
And I'll try to answer again. My internet is spotty, so I'm hearing every other word. But on our particular block, I think there's 3 issues, and we're very close with our neighbors. There's a couple neighbors just next door to me, and their issue, they're you know, a little, I don't know how to say it, more politically correct. They're a little older than I am, and they just don't want well water and they don't want to pay for it. Sorry, they don't want city water. There's some families that do want it very badly. And then the final issue, and this is impossible to prove, but if Patrick showed his map again, there've been, on my side of the street, there've been 4 cases of cancer, right, like next door, right down. And the rumors are that it's the water, that's the connection. So that's impossible to prove. I have a young family. I have 3 little kids, and you know, we're scared to drink our water. We love it here. The people, yeah, and I think our block is economically diverse as well. So I think you can tell from, you know, it's economic for half the people. They just don't want to pay it. And for some of the people, it is, you know, we're a little afraid, scared. For me, you know, I am willing to foot more of the bill, so to speak, to get this project off the ground. I know that could be in the, I know that could be a significant outlay, but if there's a way to pay it back, or if I foot most of the, you know, majority of the bill, that's fine. I just want to move this project forward for safety, for many reasons. I want to be able to drink the water. So.
And then I have a question for Bruce. When we've been doing these water SSAs, the bond has been for what term? What year? How many years? 15 years, right?
10 years, mostly 10 years. We only did one that was longer because it was an overlay of sewer and water at the same time.
But in theory, you could extend the term another 5 years and make it a 15-year bond, assuming you could sell those bonds. And then the annual cost would be easier to swallow, I would assume, by the average homeowner.
Sure. I mean, we just sold a 15-year bond on a street project, which wasn't even a tax exempt bond. The water project would be a tax exempt bond, so probably more desirable.
Okay, thanks.
Is there any further discussion? I think what we can say to you, sir, is that we've got a group that's formed. We wanted to explore these options and we want to find a path forward. And we will keep in touch with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone's help here. So
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Showing up, whatever, virtually.
My wife wants to say thank you.
Oh, hello.
So. Thank you again.
Hope to see you in person. Thank
And
you.
Chris, I checked the email. There's
too.
no emails requesting.
Okay, is there anyone else here that wishes to, visitors that wish to address the board? Okay, seeing none, as far as I can see. First item of new business, presentation for approval of insurance proposal from Alliant Insurance Services. And this has been just a really great partnership. I've had a lot of questions as a new mayor, and Megan and Kathy have been just very responsive and very, very helpful. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to them, and you've got their presentation in your packet. Kathy, you need to unmute. I'm sorry, Megan.
That was me, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I think Kathy's having some internet issues. She just said her internet was going in and out. So I will just go ahead if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for your time. We've really enjoyed the partnership as well. The village does such a fantastic job with taking advantage of the program's loss control and doing a great job with your losses. You make our job a lot easier that way. As we put in our proposal and explained to the mayor, even with our, oh, there's Kathy.
There's Kathy. Hi.
I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
I think our internet just cut out. I'm
Kath, your internet's still kind of blotchy, so I think I'll just keep going forward.
sounds great.
Okay. So as you saw in our packet, the insurance market is a little bit of a mess, unfortunately. As we discussed a bit last year, it has moved to a hardened market, which basically means that there are increased rates and decreased capacity. Without going into too much of the doom and gloom, we are seeing quite a bit of very high rate increases, and in conjunction with the capacity decreases, meaning that we have some insureds that have $25,000 in umbrella limits that are getting renewals with 10, but at the same premium. And so it's kind of a mess, and that's because, as you might be familiar with our discussion last year, you have national property catastrophic losses with windstorm and hurricanes and wildfires pushing those rates up. Auto rates have been increasing for a long time due to distracted driving and increased medical costs, and the excess markets as well. With that said, we approached your incumbent carrier, ICRMT, Illinois County Risk Management Trust, who's insured the village for a few years now. And they gave us a indication of a 5% or less anticipated rate increase, which is by far lower than what the market is showing us right now with similar insureds. And so we approached ICRMT for the renewal. They did slightly better than what they anticipated with a 4.9% increase over last year's. And they did perform an appraisal, which is one of the services that ICRMT includes free of charge with your premium. And those they weren't able to finish that in time to include those values. So that will be updated with the program. They do that every 4 years. That's a huge value included in your program. So overall 4.9% increase, which includes, if you break it out, actually a 10% rate decrease for the workers' compensation. So we're really happy with that. The only change in the program from expiring is they did a slight increase in the cyber liability deductible from a $2,500 to a $5,000. That's the only change. And honestly, cyber is the worst of the children of insurance coverages right now. In that, as you guys are, I'm sure, very well aware with what you hear in the news and could even be experiencing personally, it is everywhere. It is not an if, it's a when. And carriers, the market is changing so dramatically and quickly that back in January, we had insureds where markets were renewing programs saying you need to have MFA is the newest word in cyber. It's multi-factor identification. That's where you have that extra code from your cell phone or another email address to make sure you are in fact you when you're logging on to something. They said, they would renew accounts in January and said, make sure you have this in place if you don't already. Get it in place in the next year, great. by July, they were not placing the coverage. So it's evolving quickly and it's getting very tough. They're requiring a lot of loss control, such as encryption and multi-factor verification, training and testing. And so they're really pushing a lot of those. The ICMT program includes quite a bit of loss control on all of your lines, which I know the chief of police has done a fantastic job of making use of. And I know that they're working to ramp up that with the cyber as well. Just last year, their reinsurance is provided through Beasley, which is the top carrier currently for cyber. And so now it's on Beasley paper, and it's a fantastic program. We're happy that we were able to provide such a minimal change in coverages and at a really significantly fair option within what we're seeing in the market. At all the things we included in our packet, the services and kind of the direct value with the ICRMT program. They not only include the underwriting, the actual insurance coverage, but the loss control, the law enforcement training, the open door legal, and all of that in a separate program would have costs to it. And so kind of that all-in cost that you're getting, just kind of, I guess, free, is $17,000 is what they kind of estimate the cost of that would be. So that's in there too. Can you tell Kathy was going to talk? So did anyone have any questions? We also include a nice schematic of, we call it the towers, which is like a PowerPoint with the blocks of coverages to show you what your program looks like in a quick image to show, what coverages the excess liability is over. Before we worked with you, or I guess it was just the first year you were with IML, which is a different pool. And they have, for example, a large umbrella limit that goes over all coverages. And so in the ICMT program, you have a nice kind of tower of that. So if you're looking at those towers, that's what that's really representing, and it gives you kind of a snapshot, a nice image of what your program looks like. There's Kathy.
Sorry about that.
And
I think
then-
we had a quick Comcast issue.
Oh, you still have it.
Yeah,
I do have a,
Apologize. Make
okay. Trustee Jamerson, would you like to ask a question?
yeah, I walked with Pat Glenn and the appraiser from some insurance company. I don't know if it was through you guys or not. I think it was. And I guess one of the questions that came up was, we looked at things like the Meadow Lake Reservoir, which is we still own, but we don't use, but it still has a value. And things like fire hydrants and grinder pumps and, the value of our water system, the value of our sewer system. And I'm not sure whether anybody went through those items to determine whether or not, A, we should insure them for any value, and B, should we insure them for, should we insure for every single fire hydrant we have? And I don't know the answer to that. It was just a question that Pat threw out while we were walking around with the appraiser. And of course, the appraiser said, my job is to see what things are worth. So she couldn't answer that question. But I don't know that anybody's circled back around to make any of those determinations, or are we valuing, if I look at this tower thing, it says $11 million of building and contents. I don't know if that's all that stuff's included. Does that include the reservoirs? Does that include, so that's my question. Are we over insuring some of those things, I guess is my question.
So there's two things on that. The property valuation that's listed is the what we call the statement of values. We have a schedule of all the village-owned locations that have property, and a building limit and a contents limit that's associated with those. And I was pulling those up as you were speaking, and I'm looking. We do have the couple of reservoirs. Sorry, one at Thorngate and one in Colonial Court. I believe that's it for those. And we have those listed specifically with a building value and no contents value, obviously. And then, so if there's any change with those, what they do is they do the appraisal, they give us the value. And if you have a dispute with it and you say it's really not worth that, I don't want it to be insured for that, we can amend that. They're saying that the Colonial Court Reservoir, for example, is $753,000 of building, or sorry, $766,000 to rebuild it. And that's the intention. You know, the property insurance is there. A windstorm comes through, you need to completely rebuild it. What would you rebuild? We can also change the valuation. It doesn't have to be a replacement cost. It could be actual cash value. It could be functional value replacement, functional replacement value. So it doesn't have to be 100% renewed. You know, would you really replace the whole thing? And then further, the program includes, of course I have a slide, I'm sorry. The program includes a outdoor property regarding the fire hydrants question. They have a $100,000 supplement included within the property coverage of their program for things that are like fences and road signs, foundations, statues, benches, bike racks, fire hydrants, and such. And it would be there, those are subject to a $5,000 deductible, but you have a $100,000 limit so that we don't have to schedule every single fire hydrant. You're not going to, you know, forget to schedule a fence or anything like that. So you have kind of that built-in supplement regardless. That's not something that they can really take out and give you premium back for, but for the schedule, yes, if you had amendments to it, we can always change it. And again, the appraisal should be finalizing. They work to get them all in, and ICRMT program is a 12/1 effective date. So all 100-something of their members renew on one date. So they're rushing to get all the quotes done for every village and every municipality right now. And the appraisals weren't finished yet. So we wanted to be able to get that to you. Once that gets updated, they'll update their program. And so those values will come in later. And we can always amend it. We can amend it at any point during the policy term. One of the benefits of ICRMT is they don't endorse throughout the term unless it's a significant change. So if you add 30 more little buildings, they're not going to charge you additional premium, even if you delete 30 little buildings. However, if you make a $500,000 valuation change, that's when they'll endorse and charge or credit premium. So that gives you an idea of, you know,
Well,
less paperwork.
Okay, thank you for that. And I can tell you that the Colonial Court Reservoir is not being used, and it's actually going to be removed when this project happens at Federal Life. So we shouldn't be paying anything. I mean, we shouldn't be insuring it at all, in my opinion. Pat can probably chime in on that, but.
Yeah, I agree. I guess in my simple auto insurance analogy, I would say we need to be covered for liability only. There's no value in the building itself.
Okay. And in the event that it was only partially damaged, there would be no need to bring it back to life in any way.
Nope. No, it's completely offline.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Megan, did you have more to add?
He's in
I
now.
think so. I think
Just,
Kathy, did you have anything?
Yeah, Bruce?
I
I
just,
apologize for my internet. I assume that you have covered it all, Megan. Thank you so much for jumping in.
Of course.
in the flurry of all of the numbers and coverages, just in case the board is about to vote to approve this, could we just have a statement of the annual premium that the board would be approving for a motion?
I
think it was about
$123,105.
Yes.
$123,105, yes.
$123,105 for all the coverages that we're getting for a year.
Correct.
And the term, this runs December 1 is the starting point.
Yes.
Correct, yes.
Any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Thank you.
Megan and Kathy, thank you so very much. You've been
Thank you
great
so very
partners.
much.
We
Appreciate your
it.
time.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, under new business, we have board estimate of amount to be raised by village property tax in 2021 tax levy. I think Attorney Huvard, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. We went through the Finance Committee's workshop at the last meeting. If you recall, the recommended increase was roughly 20% of the property tax levy, taking it up to, I have it in here someplace, $988,800. Since this is more than a 5% increase over last year's extension, the board needs to have a truth in taxation hearing. Part of the process is for the board to find that this estimate that we've recited here is what it's determined to be most likely needed, and therefore direct us, the staff and everyone else, to set up the truth in taxation hearing. It's kind of a two-step dance. We're not really sure why the statute has this preliminary finding before there is a truth in taxation hearing, but we just ask the board's concurrence that the estimate of the amount to be raised this year will need to be at an amount of $988,800 for the property tax levy.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none on the part of the board members, roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, approval of clarification to an extension agreement with Lakeshore Recycling Systems. Attorney Hubert.
Sure. The original agreement was expiring in March of this year, of 2021. When we went through the rate schedule, because of the time it took us to reach agreement with Lakeshore and work out all of the details, they started the rate schedule October 1 and ran it through September 30 of 2026. And then after the fact, noticed the discrepancy that our extension agreement ran through March 31 of 2026. Since presumably we get the benefit of the locked rate for the balance of that 6 months, I didn't think it would be objectionable to basically swap out a page in the agreement and change the date from March 31, 2026 to September 30, 2026. But we felt the board ought to direct us to do that.
Are there any questions? Any comments? Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Abstain.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to motion passes. Moving on to an ordinance amending the, I'm just going to cut to the chase, the sprinkler code.
I will try a short summary of
Wanna
this,
go?
and then trustee Jamerson can help.
Okay,
2019, after quite a bit of work, we updated all of the published codes. For those of you who are new to the process or don't know what I'm referring to, the village doesn't try and reinvent the wheel when it comes to the building code, electric code, plumbing code. We have, in many cases, very comprehensive published codes. The problem is the published codes are one size fit all, and almost every place where they're adopted, then there are a set of amendments that change some of the provisions to make them fit local circumstances. So we have, the ordinance ran 20 or 30 pages of exceptions to the various codes we adopted. Somewhere in there, when Russ started doing reviews, he asked me where was the requirement that we have sprinklers in residential properties. And I had a hard time finding it because of the way the exceptions were written. And then when I found it, I realized that maybe there's a problem. Trustee Jamerson stepped in and reviewed it with the fire district. And it turns out that there was a technical problem in how the exception was expressed. So we've corrected that in the proposed ordinance. And then beyond that, I think Trustee Jamerson felt that there ought to be updated references to the sprinkling codes. There are 3 or 4 codes that pertain just to fire sprinkling, automatic fire suppression systems. And finally, suggested some editing or tweaking of the actual standard we use to determine when we should have an automatic fire suppression system in a residence, a new residence, or with an addition. So that the reason for this is to correct a series of arcane technical issues, make it easier for our building department to find the actual regulations that govern it, and to have a clearer statement of when automatic fire suppression systems are required and when not. As to the actual substantive change, maybe Trustee Jamerson would like to describe what the recommendation is.
Sure. First of all, for people who are not familiar with the codes are minimum standards. And so most municipalities tweak them to their liking. They can't, it's dangerous, and probably there's a liability involved to relax the codes, but most municipalities make them more stringent. So the original question of, whether it's sprinkling is in our codes or not, when we changed to the 2018 version of the International Residential Code, that code requires sprinklers in all new single-family dwellings. So we were covered, but once again, that code is not as stringent as we would like it. And I reached out to the Lincolnshire Riverwoods Fire Department to talk to the fire marshal there. They have a code that they enforce in unincorporated areas. And so our goal was to try and mesh those 2 codes together, unless they were so far apart that it didn't make sense. Part of the village is also protected by Deerfield Bannockburn. We weren't able to connect with their fire marshal because he was a month away from leaving and they don't have a replacement. So we're hoping at this point that, and based on what Eric Norland from Lincolnshire Riverwoods said, their 2 codes, Deerfield Bannockburn and Lincolnshire Riverwoods, are pretty much the same. So basically, the important thing is that we basically deleted everything in the International Residential Code as far as fire sprinklers are concerned, and we inserted what you have in the packet, which is pretty much mirrors exactly what Lincolnshire Riverwoods requires. And they they review our drawings, they inspect anything having to do with sprinklers. Russ sends everything over to them because we're not qualified to do that. And so we felt it was better to stick with them. They followed the 2013 edition of NFPA, which is National Fire Protection Association, 13D, which is the residential sprinkler codes. Couple of things: we require sprinklers in all new single-family homes. We also require it in major remodels and additions, and our code was a little vague in how we determine that. So I took a page out of the Lincolnshire Riverwoods. And if it's more than 75% of an existing single-family dwelling is reconstructed as a new building. So if it's mostly a tear down, but they leave up 2 walls, they still have to sprinkle the whole building, because that's been, not here, but in other places, that's been an out. I know they used to do that all the time in Florida. And then for existing buildings, the same thing. And it's a matter of how much larger they are making the building. So we went 75% of the fire area, which is basically the floor of the original dwelling. If it's over that, they have to sprinkle. And if it's, or if it's 2,500 square feet, which is a lot of square footage to add. So we didn't want to make it burdensome, but just a second, Trustee Eastman.
Trustee Eastman, yeah.
I just got a couple of things and then the other things we did to align our code was we always required an exterior strobe on the outside of the house. So when the sprinkler system went off, that strobe would flash. And if, when the fire department was coming down the street, they'd be able to see it right away. They didn't have to look for addresses. The fire district requested that be blue in color because that's what they're using everywhere. So we added that. And the other thing that they added, requested that we add is instead of transmitting the signal to a central station, which most people do with their burglar alarms, they want it connected directly to the fire district, which is the norm in most suburbs. So it doesn't go through a central station. When your sprinkler system goes off, it goes right to the fire department. There's nobody in between. So those were the basically the changes that were made. So Trustee Eastman, can I answer a question for you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I think I just caught a quick typo in item 1 where it says for new single family dwellings, expect detached garages. I assume that's except.
Yeah, that should say except. And then there was another typo I caught today where it should say of and it says on. So
okay. Yeah. Just ticky-tack stuff.
No, those are important because someone would come back and say, well, it doesn't apply to me, but.
Yep.
So thank you. We'll make a note of that. So anyways, we're just looking for first reading tonight. We're not sure that these require a 30-day cooling off period, so to speak, because they're code changes. We think that they probably fall under the, minor corrections, but just to be on the safe side, we'd like to just get first reading and then sometime in November, second meeting in November, we'll ask for final approval.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Motion for first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Haber,
Aye.
Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Approved. Okay, last item under new business, the proposal for approval of a contract with Malco Communications for AV services. Trustee Jamerson, would you like to lead us through that, please?
Sure. As many of the trustees know, we've had a lot of issues with the wireless microphones in the boardroom. There's some other issues which are driving the clerk crazy, but the microphones appear to be the biggest problem. And the history was that we thought that room, when we were designing the building, we thought that room would be a multi-purpose room more than it has ever been. We thought we'd be moving furniture all the time. That's why everything's on wheels. We don't have a dais like most villages do that's permanently affixed where they can wire stuff down. So we chose to go with wireless microphones. That was a bad choice. The microphones had limitations and the batteries were horrible, and the company that we hired to do the work, because we we were required to take low bid, and they were responsible at the time. Were not very helpful in the situation. So now that we realize how that room is used, it's more advantageous to have a wired mic system. We'll still have wireless microphones for presenters and other events. The wired microphones will be connected via jacks in the floor, so that if we do have to move the furniture, they can be unplugged and tables can be moved. But for the most part, they probably will not get moved. I mean, so far we've moved that room about 2 times a year. So it's a much cleaner system. There's less maintenance involved with wireless mics. They are also going to work on the camera system. They're going to move the monitor and the controls for the cameras over to the clerk's desk, which will also be jacked in the floor, so that she can, or he or she, at least in this case, she, can control the cameras and then be able to download that to Zoom. They're going to help us fix that, because there's evidently some unbelievably long amounts of time it takes to upload it to YouTube. So they're going to work on that with us. There's a couple of other things that we're going to tackle later. Things like once we get back into in-person meetings, we're going to work on being able to have people still Zoom in to the meeting, which is basically, it could either happen like we're doing now, which is a little more difficult, or it could be just a live streamed meeting, which is what most suburbs do. Most suburbs don't let people chime in on Zoom at a in-person meeting. But those are things that will come down the line, and most of that is a matter of software, not hardware. So once we figure that out, after we get this piece done, there probably will be another small something coming down the pipe, just as a warning. So the proposals that's in the packet is from Malco Communication Systems. They deal with the base system we have is called Crestron. There is a limited number of dealers that can handle Crestron. And as we found out, the people that put the original system in were not very good at programming the system, which is why we are having so much trouble with it. Malco does this all the time, and that's why we went to them to get a proposal. They've been the ones that have been temporarily wiring up the boardroom when we have had in-person meetings before we stopped. So that's where we are. Their proposal is in the packet. We don't have a contract form from them yet, which Bruce would have to approve before we signed anything, but I would like to try and get this approved tonight so that we can get this done for the next time we have an in-person meeting, which could be as soon as the middle of the second meeting in November, depending on what the governor does. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can.
Trustee Haber.
I just wanted to ask about, and you probably know about this more than anyone because of your background, but it talks about installing 2 FSR floor boxes. Are those going to have to be cut into the concrete, or
They're going to
part of this bid, or is that going to be outsourced to somebody else?
No, well, to answer your question, they're floor boxes. Yes, they're going to be cut into the concrete right next to the existing 2 of the existing boxes. And yes, that's included in their bid. They're going to cut the concrete. They're going to chop it, basically, put the floor boxes in, patch the concrete, put the carpet back down. So that's all included in their bid. It's not as much work as it sounds like, Mike.
Yeah, okay. I hope you're right.
No, we've done it before. It's
Well, we don't have a piano to work around right now, so might make it a little easier.
helps.
Are there any other questions? So the request is to approve the contract pending review by the village attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Deacon.
Aye.
Thank you.
Could I ask another question, Chris?
Sure.
To Rick, maybe? Do you know if there's like a secondary market for the wireless microphones that we already purchased and whether we can somehow get rid of those and?
We can try. They're at the end of their, I mean, I don't think this particular model of microphone is manufactured anymore, but we can certainly try. My wife sells everything on Facebook Marketplace and eBay, so I'm just gonna, I'll send it over to her and see what she can get out of it. I don't think the Malco will have a use for the microphones, but I can certainly ask him.
They're really not that old, really.
They're not. They're from 2017. So, you know, theoretically, the technology hasn't changed that much, but evidently these have been nothing but trouble. So
You're going to be getting a list of disposable assets for approval. And on that list of assets will likely be included the TV from that lectern, that gigantic thing. So you'll be seeing that before the end of the year, because we have some things we can dispose of.
and maybe the lectern too.
The lectern itself, yeah.
We're rethinking how we're going to have visitors speak at the meeting, and it's going to be at a smaller lectern. We're going to figure out a way. The second phase of this thing is to figure out the software we need to have presenters be able to connect into the system, hopefully wirelessly through our network. So
More fun to follow. If there are no other discussion on that, under old business, we have an item, discussion of the application for video gaming business proposed for Shops at Riverwoods. The board indicated an interest to hear from the applicant after the report from the Plan Commission last time. I don't know if Attorney Huvard would like to make some comments, or Chairman Brightcoff prior to the applicants coming before the board.
Yeah, I didn't prepare anything really. I did not bring forward any of the ordinances and things that would need to be approved if the board wanted to go forward on this. I just remind you what's involved. There's a request to amend the zoning at the Shops of Riverwood, the special use ordinance that governs that. It's both the mixed use plan development regulations in the B1 district and the specific special use ordinance for shops, so that video gaming would appear as an allowable use at the shops. And on top of that, we'll need to, if the board wanted to act this way, we would need to rescind the opt-out that we did about 10 years ago and allow video gaming in the village. Again, that means only at a location that has a liquor permit, and we control the issuance of liquor permits. So the last item we would have to approve is we would have to create a class of liquor license that doesn't currently exist. In order for the applicant to even be able to get a state license, they have to have a liquor license from the village. So there are a number of approval steps. The liquor license would, designate hours of operation, a number of operational concerns. We thought it was premature to try and anticipate what the board would want to do if it even wanted to go forward with this. So those are all the types of approvals that we would need. And if the board wanted to go further along these lines, then we would bring them back at a subsequent meeting in November. We don't have them here tonight. So tonight, the purpose really is to get enough direction as to whether we should bring those kind of approval ordinances to the board at a subsequent meeting or not.
So I think with that, we'll ask Mr. Meston if he would like to make some comments to the board.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. I'm here with Tom. The last meeting we were in, there was some questions in regards to the name, how maybe the name Baby Vegas was not appropriate. And even though we were going to get this license, we didn't want to have that out front on the street, as well as limitations on signage. We totally understand that. And a lot of municipalities have asked for the same thing that you've done. And I've talked to Tom, and there would be a name change where the word Vegas would not be included. One of our last meetings, someone mentioned various names, people's kids, their mothers. Tom had an idea to name the place
Olga's.
after his mother, to be named Olga's. So the word Vegas would not be used. It would be called Olga's. So we knew that was concerning. The other questions that came up was the validity of the amount of revenue the municipality would receive. And as I said, and I had the numbers run again, but the numbers I gave you were actual numbers after accruals from the Illinois Gaming Board. With one location, the worst that your municipality would do would be $50,000 a year. That would be the worst. So if you opened up 3 locations, you'd make 150 to 200. And it was a conservative estimate. However, it's based on real numbers, which were ratcheted lower just for this conversation. So that's cash positive for you. We talked about demand. I double checked the locations that are very close to where we want to go in the shops, and their hold per day continues to grow. So there basically is a demand that people around you will keep utilizing the Illinois Gaming Board's law and utilize it in unincorporated areas of counties, as well as create new strip malls in new areas where they could have gaming. So I've looked at that. Those numbers are valid and the demand is valid. Another thing was signage, just to get into it. A lot of municipalities have limitations on signage. We understand that. And depending what the limitations were, we would follow that. A lot of places say you have to limit the signage that you would have outside. Basically, they wouldn't want 5 signs. Maybe they'd say you could have 2 nice signs that say, you know, video gaming or lounge or Olga's, and we would follow that guideline. So if you said you can't have 4 signs on the window, you could have 2 or 3, well, fine. You know, we would follow that. And on top of it, if you wanted, we would make sure that it wouldn't look gaudy. You know, we have 400 motifs in our company of different window decals and designs. After we're approved, we could show you what Tom and Mike would like to do, and you could say yay or nay. So it would be very tasteful. And it is sort of a distance from the location to Milwaukee, so it wouldn't be like in anybody's face, really. So I looked into that. We changed the name. We thought people might want that. If needed, of course. As far as the signage is concerned, we don't think that's a problem. Whatever you guys are going to tell us, we're going to follow. You say we can only have 2 signs, we could have 2 signs. That's fine. And then I double checked the demand. A lot of places that were totally against gaming have changed their minds, like in Oak Brook Terrace, just to name one. And then on top of it, a lot of places who were against the dispensaries have changed their mind. I could say this, in my opinion, from what I do, in the strip malls I go to all over the state, as well as other places, there's probably more loitering and more hanging out at a CDC dispensary than at a gaming parlor. Just to reiterate, we don't envision, if it was a packed house, we don't envision more than 7 people there. On average, it's going to be 3-4 people. If it's packed, there'll be 7. Very different than a dispensary. I know that's not the discussion, but it was brought up before. So I don't think there's any issue with crowd control at all. 0, null and void. And that's it. As far as the pouring license is concerned, it is a state requirement, but as we said in multiple meetings, most owners of these places could care less if they sell 1 6-pack a month. People aren't there to do it. Some old timers will crack a couple beers, but other than that, it's coffee, tea, it's water, maybe a glass of wine. The liquor license is just what's needed for the state gaming license. We have to have the ability to pour alcohol. And with that being said, I'll answer any question that anybody might have. And again, thank you for your time.
Is there any discussion? Are there any questions from the board?
I mean, I
Trustee Haber.
when we left off last time, I think the kind of the direction was that we wanted to hear more and we wanted to kind of go forward and decide whether or not we're ultimately going to approve or reject this concept. So I think that Bruce should go forward with preparing those papers so that we can make that determination.
I agree.
I would just like to, I think, and I know the applicant or the possible applicant said that they would abide by all of our sign regulations, but the shops has some very specific sign regulations, and I think, Bruce, you should send those to them, because there's signage requirements for the top of the building, and there's also the restrictions on what you can put in the windows. So you need to know that before. I mean, I know you said you'd do anything, but you need to know what you're getting into before you go all the way down the path. But I agree with Trustee Haber. We should go ahead and prepare the paperwork.
In order to give all the trustees a chance to express their opinion, I'd like to hear from Trustee Eastman, Trustee Dickon, and Trustee Hollander, please.
I would say that, I don't have any issue with preparing the paperwork. I think that's part of good due process. I would say more generally that my concerns have to do, thinking about what that area looks like in the future with, potentially the Landmark Homes development. My concern would be that, having the video game parlor might be a slippery slope in terms of the types of stores that are in that mall, and that might discourage other, I would say, more positive developments that might feed into providing a better environment if Landmark Homes were to redevelop that other property. So I would say that I'm concerned, but at the same time, go ahead and, prepare things so we can give it a appropriate due process.
Trustee Dickon.
I completely agree with everything that Andy had said. I think we really need to look far forward and see the big picture of how this would impact the future development of that entire plaza. But I agree that we need to move forward with the due process and have the paperwork prepared.
Trustee Hollander.
I believe we ought to move forward and have it presented at the board meeting when they're completed.
Okay.
I do have a question or two, if I can.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
The applicant had requested that the hours of operation be as late. Can you, Tony, remind us the hours? And so when we prepare a draft ordinance with hours of operation, you were looking for, could you remind me what you were looking for during the week and on weekends?
I mean, we were based on the hours I have here, for example, 9 a.m. would be the start. There are many places that open at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. I just don't see the need for it. 9 a.m. until we prefer, 12 or 1 a.m. But again, it's whatever the board or the village decides. But we'd also like to open, like on Sundays, for example, we could open at noon so that there's, people have family time or church or religious, whatever, they can have family, we don't want to disrupt any of that. So, I mean, we're changing our hours from 9 a.m. here in Hoffman Estates to 11 a.m. and possibly 12 noon. So
on Sundays.
Sundays, right.
Yeah. So 9 a.m. to say midnight during the week. And I can only either leave blanks in a document or I have to pick and choose. So you have to either tell me what you exactly want.
Right. I mean, just based off of what I have here, I'm 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. So if they could be within that realm, it'd be great, just because I know how our system works.
I did have the mayor and I were talking, there was testimony about the demographic and is 1 o'clock, and I think I had a conversation with you about why 1 o'clock serves a purpose. Given the fact that, you know, some of your clientele, you wouldn't think would be staying up to 1 o'clock, could you just elaborate on, you want the hours to be, I mean, you know, I'm sure the residents would probably prefer that the hours be earlier in the evening. But if you have a reason for requesting them, this would be a good time, because I'll put what you request in the draft ordinance unless the board hears now and says, no, that's going too far.
Sure. So in one of our discussions, we did talk about the need for later. It's most of that is based off of people's employment. So for example, a lot of people, if they work, let's say in the restaurant industry and they want to come out for a little bit, or a car dealership, or, you know, they work a second shift, that shift ends at 9, 10, 11, depending where they work. So they're able to come out for an hour or two. And that's a hard fact. I've had some people ask to stay later. I won't. I don't need the 3 o'clock. I think one's more than enough. They finish around 12, 12:30. If they're doing well, you know, they want to play for a little bit longer.
Okay,
But
all right.
that's mainly the employment and shifts. That's where people all get a fair time to be able to play.
Bruce, because I didn't want to interrupt you guys at all, but basically in regards to the signage rules that you brought up, we currently have the lease, and basically we're going to follow what the village and the landlord tells us to do for all signage rules, as well as they could coincide with other locations within that mall. And we do this all over the state, all over the country, but we already have the lease, and whatever those rules are within there, whether it's channel lettering, limitations on signage, size, that's already been done, and
Well,
we'll follow that completely.
Yeah, I actually did send them the specific criteria from the shops. And what, for the package, won't be that we would approve it after we approve the package. The actual signage, I think, should be included in the draft package so that it could be looked at before it's approved. So I'll ask you to finalize it.
Okay, trustee Eastman.
Sure. I mean, I would just point out one thing that, you know, is a little bit jarring to me would be, you know, having the hours till 1 a.m. seems a little bit off with the, you know, discussion before that we had that the target market would be older women. I can't imagine that, you know, having it open till 1 a.m. Probably meets the needs of that target market. I just add that just for.
That's a very good question. And in certain suburbs and municipalities, they will keep it till midnight, except for Friday and Saturday, for the specific reason that Tom brought up. It has to do with shifts. So their weekend might start on a Friday or Saturday night and go into Monday, but it's just to the demographic of the second shift worker, as well as the bartender and the service industry on those 2 days.
Thank you.
Trustee Haber.
You're welcome.
This is to the applicant. I drove south on Milwaukee Avenue, and I see that you're going to have another facility kind of adjacent to an auto repair place on the east side of
Glenview.
Yeah, on the east side of Waukegan, right? Or Milwaukee. When's the anticipated date that that's going to open? Because would that be something that we can actually go and see? It's relatively close, and it's a Baby Vegas, right?
Yeah, that'll be Baby Vegas. So that location, so Glenview doesn't, so this is kind of what we were discussing with your locations compared to the gaming facility that's not far, that's in unincorporated Deerfield, I believe.
Right.
Lake County. So that one address, about a year ago, I happened to drive by, met the landlord, the auto body place, and he says it's unincorporated. So I called the liquor commission. They said that one address, not Cafe Lucci, nothing north or south of it, that one address is zoned for liquor and gaming. So we approached the liquor commission and started the process, and then COVID happened. It's been a long process. Since then, we've had to do a lot of updates for the landlord. It's a long story. We have to change the water main, go all the way with the village of Glenview to change the water main to increase pressure because we're dealing with Cook County. But our goal right now is roughly about January, February latest to be open.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I did want to make one comment. Mr. Eastman, he had mentioned before, as far as like, what the potential is with the landmark properties. I will say, like, we're a small company. It's literally myself and my friend. We're not one of these big chains like Blackhawk Gaming, which is Betty's Pennies, or Dottie's, Stella's, that are 50, 60, 70 locations. But I can say that where those locations are, they're always anchored with Verizon's, Potbellies. They're all with good national chains, regional and national chains. So it's not like they're going to be next to like Cash for Gold or something bad like that. They're
Sure.
always in a good, in a good strip mall. It tends to bring people there. So like my spot that I'm in here, we've rented now 3 spots since I've opened. So the landlord's ecstatic. He's trying to now rent the biggest spot in Hoffman Estates. So
Thanks. No, I recognize that, it's not necessarily in a way the village and, the current owners of the shopping center are more responsible for the current mix of who's looking at those properties, but thanks for that insight.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other discussion? Bruce, do you feel like you have a direction here?
I do.
Okay. Hearing no other, having no other, oh, yes, sir, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to see if we get any more, if there was any general feedback based on the name. We would like it to be what it is, just because we're spending, thousands on marketing and logos and all that stuff. But I am, don't have a problem changing it to Olga's, but I would like to know if anybody, maybe everyone's opinion is that that's the direction we should go, then I'll put more effort towards that. It would help me out as far as presenting down, in the future meetings.
Trustee Hollander.
Yeah, I see no reason why the village would want you to change your name. It's not derogatory. It's fairly neutral. And if you have an identification with other locations, I think we'd be hard pressed to try to find a reason for you to change your name. I leave that open to other trustees, but I have no problem with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree.
Trustee-
I agree with Mr. Hollander.
Trustee Dickon, did you want to make a comment?
I don't have an issue with the name.
The name we're talking about then is Baby Vegas, not Olga's.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
If anything, for what it's worth, if anything, that's going to set it apart from Betty's and Lucy's and all the other women's name.
The main reason I did the first one, so.
Okay. All right. No going once, going twice. Okay, no other old business. There's no reason to go into executive session tonight. Are there any other comments from the board?
And no visitors wishing to address the board either at this point, just to check.
Did we want to get a report from the police since he missed his chance?
Oh, yes, I'm terribly sorry. Chief, would you like to give a report?
I did not prepare any police activity. I just got back into town at the end of the week and getting caught up. So I'll have that at the next meeting. While I was gone, so I shouldn't leave anymore. We did have a burglary. It was a ruse burglary in Meadow Lake, where the suspects approached the homeowner and said that they were trimming trees at the neighbor's house, and got them to go outside and look to see what they were doing, how it was affecting their property. And somebody else went inside and removed items from the house. We also had an attempt that same day in the same area where the homeowners recognized that they were trying to lure them out of the house and refused to get out, to leave the house. And they didn't call the police for till a day later, 2 days later, but they did recognize what was happening and did not let them in. We had another ruse burglary a couple of days ago. I don't have the date in front of me, sorry, but there was another attempt where they tried to say that they were with ComEd and they were doing tree trimming for ComEd, and those people would not let them in, would not open the door for them either. So so 2 of those were just suspicious incidents that we feel were attempt ruse burglaries. And then the original incident was a burglary. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions for the chief? Okay, well, our next meeting is scheduled for November 2nd. The governor's order carries through until November 13th. So we will be virtual unless I hear otherwise from the board. I assume everybody would like to remain virtual. Okay. Virtual meeting, November 2nd, 7:30. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Good night.
Bye.